The rain came down in sheets, drumming against the cracked sidewalks of a small-town high school parking lot. The sound of laughter cut through the storm, cruel, high-pitched, and heartless. 3 seniors stood around a girl in a faded hoodie, her knees muddy, her backpack half open, books soaked and scattered. "Look at her. Little farm girls all dressed for the prom now," sneered Tasha, the self-proclaimed queen of the school. She kicked a handful of wet mud onto the girl's face. The girl didn't cry. She just wiped the dirt away and looked up, those eyes, calm and steady, like still water before a storm. "Are you done?" she asked quietly. That question should have made them pause. But bullies rarely recognize the moment when they cross a line that will change their lives forever. Tasha laughed louder. "Oh no, sweetie. We're just getting started." And with that, she shoved her. The girl stumbled backward into the puddle again. The splash echoed across the lot. Cars passed by, headlights flashing briefly on the scene. Nobody stopped. Nobody ever did. Her name was Lila Porter, 17 years old, daughter of a retired Navy SEAL named Ethan Porter, who most of the town believed had lost his mind after his wife's death. He lived quietly now, fixing fences and avoiding people, his past buried under layers of silence. Lila stood slowly, rain dripping from her hair, her breathing slow and controlled. Years of her father's quiet lessons flickered through her mind. Control the moment. Don't give them your power. She didn't speak again. Just gathered her books and walked away through the storm. But that walk, head down, mud streaking her face, was the last time she'd ever walk away from them. Later that evening, Ethan was in the barn, oiling an old rifle he hadn't used in years. He heard the door creak open behind him. Lila's footsteps were soft, but he knew them anywhere. She stood there, silent, trembling slightly from the cold. Mud still stained her jeans. "What happened?" His voice was deep, calm, but carried that edge, a tone that once made men freeze mid-battle. "Nothing," she muttered, eyes down. Ethan set the rifle aside. "Don't lie to me, kid." Lila hesitated, then broke. "They pushed me again, Dad. Into the mud this time." He didn't react right away. Just looked at her, really looked. The faint bruises on her wrist, the scratch near her cheek. His jaw tightened. "Did you hit back?" Her eyes widened. "No. You always said violence doesn't solve anything." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I said violence shouldn't be your first answer. But it's sometimes the only language some people understand." Lila swallowed. "I don't want to be like that." Ethan stood, walked toward her, and gently lifted her chin. "Being strong doesn't mean being cruel. It means you decide how far people get to hurt you. You draw the line." She nodded, unsure if she understood. But something in her father's steady gaze lit a spark inside her. That night, while Ethan pretended to read, he was thinking about how the world had changed, about what it meant to be a father who'd fought wars only to find his daughter fighting her own. He'd promised himself never to let violence touch his home again. But this wasn't about vengeance. It was about teaching her strength. The next morning, he woke her before dawn. "Get dressed. We're going out." "Where?" she mumbled, half asleep. "Training." The woods behind their house stretched for miles, Ethan's old training ground, where he'd once rebuilt himself after war. The air was cold, the ground damp with dew. He handed her a pair of gloves. "We start with endurance." For the next few weeks, he taught her everything he knew, not about fighting wars, but surviving them. Running through mud, controlling breath under pressure, finding calm in chaos. She learned balance, discipline, and self-respect. And through it all, Ethan never told her to fight anyone, only to master herself. Still, he could see it in her eyes. The anger. The hurt. The memory of being thrown down while others laughed. One night, after a particularly grueling session, she broke down. "What's the point of all this, Dad? They're still gonna hate me." He looked up at the stars before answering. You're not doing this for them. You're doing this so they can't touch you again. Strength isn't for revenge, it's for peace. The bullying didn't stop right away. When Lila returned to school, Tasha and her friends tried again. They waited for the same reaction, the trembling, the avoidance. But something was different this time. Lila didn't flinch. When Tasha shoved her locker door closed, Lila met her gaze with unnerving calm. "You done?" she asked again, same tone, same steady look. Tasha blinked. The same words as before, but they didn't sound weak now. They sounded dangerous. When one of the boys, Ryan, reached for her backpack, Lila stepped aside smoothly and let his own momentum send him stumbling into the lockers. The crowd laughed. It was small, but it shifted the power. After that day, the bullies started losing their fun. Every insult bounced off like it didn't matter. Every shove met quiet confidence. But cruelty has a way of escalating when ignored. One Friday afternoon, after practice, Tasha and her friends decided to teach her a real lesson. They followed Lila behind the gym, where the rain had turned the ground to thick, sucking mud. Tasha smirked. "Let's see how tough you are now, farm girl." They pushed her again, but this time, she didn't fall. Lila stepped back, hands raised, not in fear, but precision. The boy beside Tasha reached out to grab her arm. In one swift, fluid motion, Lila twisted, used his weight, and he ended up flat on his back in the mud. The others froze. Lila's breathing stayed calm. "I don't want to hurt you. But I won't let you do this anymore." For a moment, no one moved. Then Tasha, furious and humiliated, charged at her. Ethan's training took over. Lila sidestepped, hooked Tasha's arm, and guided her straight into the same puddle she'd once been thrown into. The crowd that had gathered burst into laughter, not cruel laughter this time, but shocked, delighted disbelief. Lila didn't stay to gloat. She picked up her bag and walked away, rain dripping from her hood just like that first night, but this time, her head was high. That evening, the door opened, and Ethan turned from the porch. Lila stood there, soaked again, but smiling for the first time in months. "How'd it go?" he asked. She shrugged. "Let's just say they learned not to push people into the mud anymore." He chuckled. "Good. You didn't hurt anyone?" "Only their pride." He smiled, a real one this time. "That's the best kind of victory." They stood together, listening to the rain. Then she added softly, "You know, Dad, I think Mom would have been proud." Ethan's eyes glistened, and for the first time in years, he didn't hide it. "Yeah, kid. I think she would have." But the story didn't end there. Word spread fast. Videos from that day circulated on social media. At first, Lila was embarrassed. Then she started getting messages, some from classmates thanking her, others from strangers saying her courage gave them strength. A week later, the principal called her in. Instead of punishment, she got an apology for the school's failure to protect her. Ethan watched quietly as his daughter's confidence grew. She joined the self-defense club, then started teaching younger students the basics. Not how to fight, but how to stand tall. Tasha avoided her for weeks before finally approaching her one day after class. I'm sorry," she said, voice cracking. "I didn't know how to stop once I started. I just wanted to feel powerful." Lila studied her for a long time. Then she said, "Power's not about hurting people. It's about helping them stand up." And for the first time, they shook hands. Months passed. The school transformed quietly, less cruelty, more courage. People talked about that day as if it were a legend. But the real story wasn't about the bullies or the mud. It was about a girl who learned strength not from fighting others, but from refusing to let anyone define her worth. And a father who found peace by teaching his daughter the same lesson he once learned on battlefields far away, that the truest warriors fight not to destroy, but to protect. Years later, Lila stood at a small ceremony, a medal glinting on her uniform. She'd joined the Navy, following in her father's footsteps, not out of duty,